this afternoon is Professor Kwesi Adakwa, former Vice Chancellor of the KNUST. And Prof, as you may be aware, has worked on the transport sector projects in Ghana, including the National Transport Policy, Buankra Inland Logistics Terminal, the Tema Impakadan Railway Line, the Ghana-Burkina Faso Interconnectivity Railway Project, the Eastern and Central Spine Railway Lines, as well as transport economies. In addition, he's also worked on roads projects, including the feasibility of rehabilitation of feeder roads in the Afram Plains, the National Feeder Roads Rehabilitation and Maintenance Project, Northern Region Pilot Infrastructure, and the Pukuase Interchange financed by the African Development Bank. So he is more than situated to give us expert advice on the way forward. Prof, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
And again, good to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Yeah, you are doing very good in retirement and still working for Mother Ghana.
Oh, thank you very much.
So before we go into some of the issues that we'll be talking about, you heard the National Road Safety Authority CEO. First is, to put in a system that will limit speeding vehicles, if you like. I don't know if for you that's the way to go in terms of dealing with accidents on our roads.
Well, thank you very much. I think to start off with, I would like to wish all of us the best of luck.
Thank you.
If you look at the situation as we find it now, my approach would not be simply to scratch the surface in a panic mode and then go and do things that later on will regret. I'm saying this because recently my research has been on the Okada and then what we call the Aboboya.
Aboboya.
Very well.
There's also Pragya.
Yeah, Pragya. We've done work and I've published 2 articles, I think within the last quarter of last year and this year.
Okay.
One was in the African Journal of Transport, and the second one was in what we call TRB, Transport Review Board Journal. They all dealt with this particular issue. First, if you look at the Boboya, there's no doubt it contributes a lot to local economic development.
There are some places even used for transportation.
Exactly. I'll come to that. I'll come to that in the northern region. And then the other one looked at the crashes, the rates. I've argued with the Building and Road Research Institute for a while, but I think the crashes we had, even though it was a sample survey, we're talking about upwards of 40%.
40%.
It's risky, very, very risky. Yes. So let's be very careful before we go in. If it's possible, maybe they may not agree to this, but let's try and pilot it first and see what the effects are. The
commercialization of the Okada.
And then we can escalate this into a full-blown project. If we go countrywide, it will be very difficult. I'm saying that because we're talking about not just the movement of passengers, as we did with the 2M. We're talking about the movement of passengers and the movement of freight. That's very dangerous.
Yes.
When the two crash, the fatalities are very high. So I would say that let's move cautiously. It's very difficult for us. And you see, the cost, I'm very happy the director mentioned, the chief executive mentioned the causes. Human behavior.
Right.
How do we change this? It doesn't change over time. It doesn't change with simply laws. There's a lot more to it. And I'll suggest that we take our time and do the groundwork, and then we can go into implementation. Other than that, I'm sorry, we will have a lot of difficulty on our hands. I'm happy you mentioned the Northern Region Pilot Infrastructure Project.
Right.
Within a radius of about 20 kilometers out of Tamale, we did this project. And at the time, what we saw was that access was very important. Somebody to get into town, somebody to get into the hospital, they need to rush a pregnant woman in labor to the hospital and so on. And when you get into those circumstances, anything goes.
Right.
And so what we did was to construct very, very simple routes. And then they started using bicycle trailers and so on and so on. We saw that the impact was substantial. And even then, what we call Boboya now, people are going for a funeral, you could see about 12 of them packed in the bucket.
Yeah, you see it, especially in some of in some of the urban areas, not just rural areas.
Yes. What you see is that in some of these areas, anytime there's a crash, they somersault, and it affects their spinal cord. And so we're talking about a situation, and it's not a joke. It's a reality. Even in Accra, you hear rumors around that almost every day we tend to lose one Okada driver,
yes,
a rider. It may be true. If you look at what is happening, and when they go to the hospital, they don't also receive the best of treatment.
Yeah, I hear once you get there,
exactly.
I mean, your leg being chopped off is sometimes the first attempt.
Yeah. So I'm suggesting that we take our time and look at all of this carefully before we go into implementation.
But the problem, there's also the issue of, in some of these underserved areas, this obviously will remain the only means of transport.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The only means of transport doesn't mean drive any way you want it. If you've watched it, even in the urban areas, we have underage kids who are riding the Okada.
Yes.
Why should it be so? And yet we have laws in our law books. Why should it be so?
If others will go to, even here in Accra, places like Dome, Asharman, that's all you will see.
Yes.
I mean, market women using it, even people using that as taxi, if you like.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm suggesting that let's not look at it just in terms of passengers. Passengers and goods. The market women, they don't have any means to bring the food from the farm gate to the urban area. So what do? They go look for Boboya to carry it.
But they say that they're already doing it. So why don't we find a way to regularize their activities, give them some sort of a training so that they will be minded when they are on the road?
Are we able to regulate them well? John, I'm asking you a question.
For now, there's no regulation.
Exactly. Some time ago, we said they shouldn't transport goods along the major trunk roads and the motorway. How do we see now?
They're everywhere.
If you're
transporting water, some using
you can get some of them to Sege to someone. You can get them.
Yes.
Okay, but it's not good. It's not good. So let's be very, very careful.
The chief executive said that they sent a team to Rwanda where motorbike for commercial activity is accepted.
Right.
So they'll be drawing lessons from there that will guide them in fashioning the law to put before Parliament for the regularization of the activities. That's
true. They've done a very good work. But I think that human behavior in Rwanda is not the same as the way we behave here in Ghana. While we're coming to the studio, I kept shouting because I saw a lot of these Okada riders running through red lights. Yeah. It's dangerous.
They are immune from traffic regulations.
It's very dangerous. And I think that from what I see, I went to Tamale once. I was going to church on Sunday morning. I jumped in one of them. My goodness, my heart was virtually in my hands. So we got to the Presby Church. So let's be very careful. If we can regulate them, all well and good.
So what do you suggest now?
Well, what I'm suggesting is that it's good to say they are going to do the consultation. That's excellent. Let them do that. Let's compile all the experiences and let's see the way forward. If it's possible, can we experiment or can we pilot this somewhere? Learn lessons because of our context. It's very different from Rwanda. And the urban context is there and the rural context is there. So let's see if we can build up some experiences with which subsequently we can go into a full-blown project, a full-blown implementation.
Prof, as a country, do we really take serious, or do we pay serious attention to transportation? Let's start from road transportation. We'll get to maybe river or sea transportation. I mean, the statistics from the Ghana Road Safety Authority, as at the end of 2023, suggests that over 14,000 crashes were recorded. Out of the number, almost 3,000 lost their lives.
And that's
it's like
serious.
Driving on our roads has become more like a death center. You are lucky if you get to your destination safely.
That's right. That's right. And I'm sure you've also heard about your relatives who've come from the States or somewhere who refuse driving on our roads.
Yes.
Just because of that.
And so what exactly are we doing wrong?
I think partly it's also the enforcement, and then the education. I don't think we have it right. And the enforcement is really key. And I'm happy that the chief executive mentioned the enforcement. So let's look at those two things properly. And you see, we are not trained to do this. We are not trained to drive. Generally speaking, that is what I see. We need to be trained properly. We need to obey road regulations, road signs, the signage on our roads. I'm sure you've heard about this popular story where they say when you see two cattle on the signage,
you should park and go and eat.
So it's a very serious matter.
So it is not enough to master the skill to move a vehicle.
No, that's not enough. And the education is continuous, or should be continuous. Maybe every 2 years or so, you go and renew your license, you go through the test again, and so on and so forth. You mentioned eye test. It's very, very important. But you see, you and I, we can sit in our homes, we have our certificates renewed for us,
Yes.
our licenses.
Yes.
It's not fair to the other road users. So let's do, the laws are there. I think we have enough of them. He mentioned the LI 2180, they are there. But let's see if we can do more work on the enforcement. And MTTD, well, they are doing also a good job. But you stop 10 people and ask them what their views are on the MTTD. I'm sure you can imagine what the response would be.
And that for me is where the issue is.
The attitude.
Exactly. And that's, even we have state agencies, their job, I mean, for the driver, if we leave him, he will just misbehave.
Right.
But there are agencies that are tasked with the responsibility of ensuring that there is sanity on our roads. Yet, the situation is not getting any better.
It's not getting any better. I think I mentioned it. It's a human attitude. Or in this case, the attitude of the Ghanaian. If you cross the border to Togo, would you behave that way? You dare not. You dare not. Burkina, you can't do that. How come in our own country, because of the liberty we have, look at what we're doing. Yeah? So I think that the human attitude is also very important, and we need to see how best we can influence it or change it. But we need to be restricted or restrained from doing certain things on the road. Otherwise, we're going to see these accidents escalating from now into the near future.
What about the roads we have? Are they built to offer that kind of safety for drivers and pedestrians?
To a very wide extent, I'll say yes, they are. They are. Because if you're familiar with the sector, I'm sure you've heard that we even do road audits. They are. The problem comes down to the driver in the vehicle. So you're talking about the driver, the vehicle, and the road infrastructure. Okay? The driver may be the excellent of drivers. If he runs a very rickety vehicle, he runs into trouble. If he doesn't follow road signs, he may even attempt to overtake in the curve, and so on and so forth. So these are all contributing to our current situation, and we need to look at all of them together. I think it's important, and it's going to meet the responsible agencies, and I think it will help us a great deal.
But in terms of planning, and then the fact that sometimes a road is constructed, a year or two, it develops potholes, we don't even maintain it. So after a few years, it is back to zero. So will you say that not a lot goes into planning?
Oh, no, I won't agree with you on that. The planning is done thoroughly. The supervision is done thoroughly. In some cases, perhaps you can say they are laxes, but generally, supervision is good and the planning is very good. When planning, for example, you're not looking at just the road condition, how it's connected with all the other network, the entire network. And that is also very useful. You see, our traffic volumes have increased also substantially over time. Very short time.
But that also brings into sharp focus the issue of planning.
Yes.
I know, for example, you drove all the way from Kumasi to Accra.
Yes.
And then you saw the scale of construction works on the road. And this is not the first time. In fact, that road has seen more construction, I mean, as far as I'm concerned. Why can't we get it right once and then move to the situation where we'll continually maintain the road? I'm sure in the next 5 years, what we are witnessing now, we'll go through another phase of construction.
Okay.
So it boils down to planning.
No, I don't think so. I think it boils down to something we call EGA. You understand EGA?
Don't tell me.
Yes, money. You see, you can plan your maintenance activities and say that you do routine maintenance every year. When you don't have the money, you can't do that. If you go to periodic maintenance every 4 years, 5 years, you do this. You can't do that. So the road is left, it will run into disrepair, and that is when our problems begin. Okay? If we had people on the roads and they were working diligently, I'm sure we could deal with a lot of these things. So that's just on the road side. But the other aspects, as I said, the driver and the quality, the vehicle itself that we're using. Go on the roads, you see, in fact, go outside the major urban areas. You see rickety taxis.
Of course. And sometimes you wonder how they were, they were certified as roadworthy.
They have roadworthy stickers. I'm sure you drive a very nice car. Every year you make sure you go and renew it.
Of course.
They don't do that. So enforcement is there. Let's restrain our behavior and let's change. Because this is the only country we have.
The road safety officer says that they are implementing what they call some machine to limit the speed. Is it the best approach?
Yeah, you can. The SCC, I'm sure you've heard about SCC.
Yes.
They have that. They have that. And you can do that. So if the guy flouts it, what happens? If you're using a logbook, they need to put in the right information. If they don't, what happens? That will constitute an infraction. And they need to be dealt with.
We have MTTD staff on almost all our major roads. And I remember I traveled out of the country once, and I drove in the United States from one state to the other. When I was on the highway, the limit was 65, and they allow 10 more. So I went beyond it, and then a police officer
pulled, a ticket.
Exactly, a police officer pulled behind me. He asked for my driver's license. You realize that I was just visiting, so he gave me a warning.
You were very lucky. Because he used his discretion. You were extremely lucky. You could have landed in jail.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So don't do that. Respect their laws. And so if somebody visits Ghana, he doesn't hold Ghanaian license, doesn't hold international license, he shouldn't drive.
But the point is that taught me a lesson. That even if you don't see a police officer, you should respect their laws.
Yeah.
Because the vehicle I was driving will tell me that you are going beyond, that you should move to limit your speed.
If you see a red light,
exactly.
You stop. A complete stop.
Exactly. But why do we have MTD people on the road? And yet people drive, I mean, somebody set off and they call another person, I'm going to Kumasi, time in 2 hours, I should be at Ejuso. And but you have MTD like 20 on the road, and yet they will go past every stop and will get to their destination within 2 hours, when they are supposed to do 4 hours. Okay,
if you be kind enough with me, I also want to dodge this question to say that the matter is not properly before me.
But Prof, final question on the roads, and then we'll come back to other issues.
Right.
I mean, do we deserve the kind of road we have between Accra and Kumasi, for example?
No. As you are aware, Accra-Kumasi is the most heavily trafficked road in the country. And I've heard people say that, if even we were doing this in a piecemeal manner, maybe 6 kilometers a year and so on, would have gone very far. So in short, if you look at the volume of traffic, then perhaps we don't deserve this type of traffic. And the people moving, people and goods, you try going to Kumasi even on a Sunday morning.
Yes.
You see all the trucks, articulated trucks.
Yes.
You can be in a convoy for 20 minutes. And if you are not patient, what will happen to you? If you are not careful and you are not patient, you could run into a crash. So I'm saying that, in short, I agree with you, we probably don't deserve this type of road.
Tell me the rationale behind the Mpakadan Railway, for example, because we worked on it.
Okay. The Mpakadan Railway line, I think it's also partly designed to relieve us of the stress on our roads. And as you know, when you are transporting freight over long distances, 400, 500 kilometers, the cost per ton kilometer becomes much, much, much cheaper, okay, if you use water transport. So far, that's about the cheapest. Okay? Water transport, followed by rail and road and all the other modes of transport. So we think that if we have this resource there, we need to use it. And if we are using it, by international law, we should provide access to the landlocked countries to get to Tema.
Right.
And if we are going to do this, we cannot sit and get all of them go onto the road to get their goods, containers and so on there. If they do this, our roads are going to run into disrepair in a very short time.
Right.
So we think that this is what we can do. So you put a container on a truck from Tema to Mpakadan. It should have been the marina in Akosombo, but we refused to go there because of the blasting. So you get to marina, it's put onto the Volta Lake, it gets to Yape, and it can continue its journey back right into the destination, Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali by road. Okay, so that is the rationale. It's actually the cost. And if you remember, the cost of transportation has a rippling effect on virtually everything in our lives.
Yes.
So,
but we are witnessing food inflation because of how it is transported to the market centers.
At times, they don't even have transport. They have to head load. And head load is very expensive. And therefore, I think that one of the things we want to do there, just as we did in the Afram Plains, would be to lower transport costs. If we can do this, you see inflation coming, most likely to come down.
So the Mpakadan project is it solely for the transportation of goods?
No,
what about?
It's both. Railway, for goods and then for passengers.
Right.
Or for freight and passengers.
Is it possible to replicate it across the country?
It's a cost. Last year, we're looking at the figures of about $4 million per kilometer.
For real?
Yeah, for real. It's expensive. So that's why we appear to have stalled. If we can get money, we can do this within a very short period.
And the interesting, I think in 2004, the Ghana Railway Company, raised a concern where even the tracks that they've constructed, some people have gone to remove some of the railings and sold as scraps.
See, this is what I was referring to as our human behavior. We have lost. I'm sure nothing happened to them. I'm very, very sure nothing has happened to them. Okay, so that's our human behavior.
But the question also, when you construct the rail tracks, and you don't put the train on it, and you leave it at that, that is what it invites.
It's true. It's true. But why should that be the case? A railway line with trucks, steel trucks, and you want to go and destroy the trucks and take them to go and sell as what they call
alumi scraps.
My goodness.
And at the last count, almost $200 million had been stolen.
Yeah. Is it not an attitudinal problem? It's an attitudinal problem, I think. It has nothing to do with you being unemployed and so on and so forth. The trucks are there. But where you are right is that if we leave it unused for a very long time, it will attract the attention of such people.
The Mpakadan, has it got any relationship with Buankra? Because it appears to have similar functions.
Very good. I'm sure you've heard about integrated transport system.
Yes, Prof.
Now, we want a shipper who is importing something from Frankfurt to Tema to have a choice. Okay? Either you go through Buankra or you go through Mpakadan. If you are going to go through Buankra, the assumption is that you carry your container or your box to Buankra by rail. When it gets to Buankra, say within Kumasi, Techiman and so on, you can use Buankra. And those going to the northern regions and beyond can use the Mpakadan, which will give them a combination of the rail, the road, the water transport, and then to the final destination would be by road.
Right.
You see, it gives a door-to-door service.
Right.
And that is why it's more convenient. People like it. Unlike the rail, which is rigid. So you get to a station, you have to continue to the rest of your trip on a vehicle. But if it's the vehicle or the road, it can take you right to your doorstep. So that's the advantage.
Prof, why is the Buankra stalling?
Buankra, it hasn't really stalled, except that progress is slow. It's all to do with what I mentioned earlier on EGA. The money simply not there. We've been looking for concessionaires to come and run this project for us, okay? Just as they've done in other countries. There are so many inland ports and logistics terminals within Africa and the rest of the world. So we need to also, it's a technology that is coming, we need to take advantage of that. And so it's not stalling. Very soon, you'll see the structures come up, okay? You will have a police station, you have
the administration block is there.
Yes.
Built several years ago.
Yes. We are refurbishing it. So we are going to use that as part of the offices for some of the departments. So
it is possible that project will come to fruition.
It is. Let's get a concession.
The original plan was to, when up and running, containers bound for Burkina Faso and the likes will be transported via rail to Buankra.
Yeah, but you see, until the railway is fixed, we'll have a lot of difficulty. So let's leave the choice to the shipper.
Right.
And then they will want the two Buankra and Mpakadan to compete with each other. And if they do that, the shippers finally would be better off.
Few issues, and then I know in 2018, for example, we're a member of my uncle, Justice Bobe's committee.
Yeah.
And the work resulted in the creation of 6 more regions. What development challenges did you travel around the country review to you? Well,
there are many, but let me limit myself to a few.
Of course.
In the northern region, for example, traveling from Tamale to Yagaba, the same region, it would take you about 3.5 or 4 hours. The same region. The problem was a problem of access. The road condition wasn't too good, and so you had to slow down. So when on our return trip, we went through Fumbisi to Sandama to Navrongo, Bolga, and then to Tamale. It was faster. Okay? So, but why should this be so? So the problem of access, that's one of the major problems. Now, access not to just educational facilities, access to justice, access to several other central functions. And this is why we felt that the creation of those regions become necessary. And now if you go around, most of them have their regional administrations. They are looking for regional medical officers and so on and so forth. So development is now taking place. Decentralization is being strengthened and so on and so forth. Access to services is being improved.
Okay. 42 years of service at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. How will you describe it?
Well, it's been fruitful. A lot of very excruciating moments, but overall it's been very, very fruitful. I think that, as you said, I've been able to rise from the lowest level up to the top. So somebody will say, I've seen it all.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
But for me, with humility, I'm saying that I've been I've been grateful to God because I've been able to serve my generation. So that's why I've still remained there.
And at VC and then re-elected to also for another 2-year term. What are some of the achievements you can walk us through?
Oh, okay. If you know the campus very well,
Of course I
did a lot. If you start off from the Kesley-Hayford administration, the block, it was meant to be an examination block.
Yes.
Now it's been taken up by offices and so on. You can move from there, come to the Pajo. If you remember the TEF that we have there. What's the name now? It's escaped me. The
stadium?
Yes.
Yes.
It's not Astro. It's not Astro. No.
Okay. The stadium itself, the pitch.
Yes, the stadium itself. That was done. And then you move from the stadium, you can go up towards the Africa Hall. You see the student clinic. I did that. You can go to the hospital, the theater. We had one operating table. Now they have many. You did that. The pharmacy, and then most importantly, the OTC.
Of course.
Of 32 Medical Center.
Right.
That's all done. And then you can come again to transport, the open air parking facility. You can come back to Akodia Road where you see infilling. Previously, we had one bungalow sitting on 1.5 acres of land.
Yes.
Where on earth would you get this? So we have started infilling, building duplexes, and so on and so forth. The Unity Hall Road, if you remember, it was really bad shape.
Yeah.
We've had to fix it quickly because that impacted on us adversely.
Yeah, criminals took advantage of the poor.
I was talking about the tartan tracks.
Yes.
Yeah, I had to fix that.
Okay.
And it was used as a training center for the Cantu 8
of course
competition that was held in.
And you've crowned this with an autobiography, Against All Odds. And the launch is coming up pretty soon. Tell us a bit of what really is contained in this book. Yeah. I'm eager to read it.
Contained in this book, I like to say that it's targeted at various stakeholders in the educational space. We're talking about students, we're talking about faculty, we're talking about senior staff, we're talking about everybody who has a stake in it. All I'm saying is that if you read it, you see my beginnings. I started school in this city, Police Depot Primary School. You know, barracks boy.
Tesano.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we don't. So we didn't call it Tesano, but police barracks boy.
Okay.
How on earth do you expect that I would have gone this far? So because of that, when we went to Koforidua, I was moved from the barracks to attend a boarding school, and then from there to Mfansfim and so on and so on. So all I'm saying is that economics or finance could be a major obstacle. And then as you move along your life or one's life, you see that one comes face to face with a number of obstacles. But aside from all those things, it is still possible to achieve your objective.
And if we can just show the book to our cameras, and the launch is when, Prof?
20th of March,
20th
which
of
is
March.
This coming Thursday's week at the KNUST Business School auditorium, and we're talking about auditorium C. Yeah.
All right, but so who you are inviting everybody to come?
Yes, we haven't seen you for a long time.
Of
so
course,
come.
I'll be there absolutely.
And bring a lot of money.
Sure, sure, Prof. And this is again on the 20th of March at the KNUST Great Hall.
No. Business School.
Business School, KNUST Business School. Before I let you go, there's still the issue of, the funding of tertiary education. The many challenges with it, from access to cost and quality,
everything.
And everything. How do you go around this? There's a new government in place.
Yeah. I wasn't part of the forum, but I think that I'm hoping that we can have an opportunity to also talk,
Sure.
Maybe by Zoom or whatever. But I think that, as you are aware, KNUST has been determined to be the #1 globally for the access to quality education.
Sure.
This was done by no mean group. The Times Higher Education, they did this in 2023. Okay? Meaning that we're doing something right.
Right.
So in terms of access or quality education, we're doing our best. But let's go slow with the numbers. KNUST, if you believe it, from the times you were there, now we're about 85,000. 20,000 would be those who are campus. It's not a joke.
60,000.
Yes, it's not a joke. So we're doing very well.
But it's an entire community.
It's a township.
Right.
It's a township. So we're doing very well, but I think that we can do with a lot more resources. At KNUST, They've been very, very innovative. They are finding solutions to their problems, but it's not enough. We need to do a bit more.
And then, for example, for those who pray to get into KNUST or any other public university and they are unable to gain admission, the only resource is to go to some of these private universities. I don't know.
That's not the only resource. They can also do distance learning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And other things. But generally, there are so many private universities in the country now. Is it helping in terms of access to tertiary,
yes.
education?
It's helping. It's helping. If you, one of our universities, one of the new ones, the public ones, this year they took about 4,000. Where would they have gone? They don't also have money. Remember I said one of my odds here was money.
Right.
They don't have the means to go to a private university.
It's very expensive.
Yes. So that's very important for us. So we should keep them, but let's give them the support they need.
All right. So, folks, against all odds, that's Prof. Autobiography. The launch is coming up on March 20th at the KNUST Business School. And time?
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock. All right. You really have to be there. You need to get this book and read.
And you will be there.
Of course, 100%. I won't miss this for anything. Prof, thank you so much for coming through for us. And as always, good to see you.
Nice to see you again.
Professor Kwesi Adakwa is a former Vice Chancellor of the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. And we'll take a short break. When we return, we'll talk about the budget that is coming up, the presentation that is coming up tomorrow. We'll speak to some interest group. I heard their expectation, road contractors and other funding.